you and all those that are watching us out there in Facebook land. We hope you've had a good week and that you're ready to celebrate and rejoice in the Lord. So if everyone will stand up, we're going to sing some good old-fashioned hymns to get started, to praise the Lord and to get things going. So just join in with us. And if you don't know the words, it should be right there. All right.
Land.
Oh, Lord, we love you. We thank you. We thank you for your mercies, your blessings, your goodness, and your love. We thank you that no matter what we go through each and every day, no matter what may be facing us, Lord, we know that we can turn our eyes to you, Lord. We can trust you. We can believe in you because your word is true. We can always, always, always turn to you. We can live in your grace. We can live in your grace. We love you. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in
Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
Morning.
Let's see if I can get this thing rolling. By the way, thank you, Sherry. Thank you. And it was good to hear some of those older songs. Yeah. Am I on? Yeah, it sounds like I'm on now. Yeah, it always gives us a reach back to, when we were younger in church and singing those old hymns. We actually had books we were reading them out of. Remember that?
And notes to look at.
Back in the ancient times, in the Stone Ages.
No. No. More of the Bronze Age.
Well, Bronze Age, okay. Well, I got to thinking about it when they were singing those, and I was thinking about my childhood, growing up in the church, and I was like, you know what? All of those songs started off as new songs at one point.
Absolutely.
Just kind of like we now sing more contemporary songs in the church today, but it's always good to reach back, go home a little bit. So, hope y'all have had a great week. Whenever I show up here, I always feel like I'm that favorite football coach in high school. You're going to his class and see him wheeling in the TV for the day. And it's like the greatest feeling in the world because you're like, I can't do nothing. But just sit there in a dark room and can actually kind of sleep if I want to while, I guess he's showing the video over the mating habits of Amazonian frogs or whatever. So I hope you'll bear with me. I gotta say, whenever Donald asked me to do one of these to substitute for him, my weeks from the time he asked until the time I get up here and talk to y'all usually is just a total train wreck. Because it seems like everything else in my life out prioritizes my relationship with Jesus in that time period, and that's not coincidental, and that's what I'm kind of talk to about today. Elizabeth asked me, hey, what's the title of your sermon today? I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, I gotta have something to put on the CD. I was like, okay, what did I call it? Being Fortress Strong or Becoming?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Being Fortress Strong.
Being Fortress Strong. Okay, that's a biblical reference. To being, God is our refuge and our high tower. And, He's able to take the blows. And as a Christian, we're supposed to be able to grow towards being more like Him, right? He's the ultimate strength. And, when we're young, strength takes on a different character than it does when we're older. Strength is often physical when we're younger. Strength is often mental and emotional when we're older. But, like I said, it's been a heck of a 2 weeks ever since Donald asked me to come up here. And especially this last week, nothing was going right. And I think it really culminated in yesterday. We were going to watch Brandon run his cross-country meet over at Paladuro Lake. And, just getting out onto Lake Marvin Road. We're motoring down Lake Marvin Road, and it's looking all nice, and then there's a car stopped right in the middle of the road. Obviously looking at all the foliage and everything, but they're stopped right in the middle of the road. Of course, me being the dad that I am, I'm just like, move! It didn't stop there. The hits just kept on coming. And by the way, this is just yesterday. This isn't counting Monday through Friday, what all happened between then. The whole time I'd been thinking about, all right, what am I going to talk about? I already knew what I was going to talk about, but how am I going to arrange it? All right, so we keep on traveling down Lake Marvin Road, and parked right there at Highway 83 and 60 at Lake Marvin Road was a cattle truck that had been shipping cows. And it was parked right there in the road, not off to the side, in the road with his flashers on, and he obviously was not moving. And I'm like, what gives, bud? You're parked in the road. And so I pull over around him and proceed on towards Perryton. I kind of look up in there and see he's on his cell phone. Of course, I give him the snarly face. Can't you see I'm an athletic dad going to my son's event here? And then we show up to Paladuro Lake, and they're like, oh, we can't go down in there. You got to stand up on the dam. But the people who are camping down there can go down in there, but not you. Even though you drove all this way to see your child compete. But it was fun, nonetheless. But that was just one example of how the past 2 weeks have been, and it's not coincidental, okay? This happens every single time Donald asks me to do one of these, and I'm almost to the point where I'm like, don't ask me more. My weeks just are horrible when you ask me to do these things, okay? And it's, like I said, it's not coincidental. And the scripture came to mind constantly throughout in this interim period. Ephesians 6:12. Elizabeth, you can put that up. And it says, if you are familiar with it, this is in the NIV. It's what I usually reference. Okay, it's not up there. All right, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil and in the heavenly realms. I did write that down right. Okay? So for me, the way I was perceiving all of these things and the way I think accurately is I'm being harassed, all right, spiritually. And I think I had mentioned one time when I was up here before, like sometimes my skin would start itching like crazy. Like I cannot stop itching. And that happened again. So I'm like, all right, obviously we have gone from the physical into the metaphysical here and how we're going to have to address this problem. And I think that was like a concentrated example of what it seems like our times right now are, okay? There's a lot of things going on right now where a lot of us have not seen this kind of angst and animosity in our world right now. I mean, in fact, one time, a couple of weeks ago, I asked my mom, she grew up in the 60s. She was a teenager in the 60s. And I was like, Mom, you know, he grew up in the 60s. Am I off again? Okay, there we go. Mom, you grew up in the 60s. Was it anything like this? She was like, it's nothing like this at all. You know, there was the counterculture and everything, but they were generally peaceful, all right? But now something's going on that is just, everybody, I think, can feel it. It's just inherently evil, right? There's just like, I've never seen humans act this way against other humans before in my life, all right? And I've been in combat twice, okay? So I've been there, done that, and sold a t-shirt. So I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And I know what's going on. I mean, there's a real big push right now of just badness. So I know that y'all feel it. You feel a bit more weary, you're worn down. It's like no good news ever comes out. You know, it seems. I mean, obviously there's good news, but what is the human nature? The tendency to gravitate towards the bad news, right? What's the old newspaper saying? If it bleeds, it leads. So that's what you see. Okay. All right, if you notice it, you're not alone, and it's not coincidental. Like I said, I think everything has going on right now has a metaphysical relationship that's driving it. And again, I go back to Ephesians 6:12, and if we couch our entire argument in that, I think we can get a better understanding of what we're up against. And tactically speaking, if we know what we're up against and we name it accurately, then we'll know how to combat it, okay? But this is not necessarily a physical combat. This is a mental and spiritual and emotional combat. And a lot of us are not very well versed in that. A lot of us older ones are, because we've learned, hey, you know what? I can't really put up my dukes anymore physically. I got to put up my spiritual dukes, you know. So this is a highly volatile political season. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. And again, it's not coincidental. And it would seem that every instrument of earthly power is aligned against people who think, act, and believe as we do here in this room. All right, it seems like there's a laser beam focus of badness focused against folks like us, okay? And just generally good folks in general. And so you can kind of feel alienated if you really think about it. And it seems like we're always constantly fighting. It doesn't seem like we're winning at anything. It seems like we're always behind the 8 ball. You know, if we turn on the news, if we turn on the radio, just any form of media, regardless of which station you put it on, it seems like, man, it's like things that I believe in are under attack. You know, why are people persecuting this? I generally thought this was a good way to live, a good idea, a wholesome thing to believe in, and a wholesome way to act. So when we have this start of this conflict and we come in contact with people who happen to be on the other side of the argument, how do we deal with that in a most productive way? All right, so if somebody has a differing opinion than you, I mean, I'm sure y'all have seen lately how things can kind of get out of hand pretty quickly, right? Now, we're fortunate here in Canadian where we have a general understanding of where most people stand philosophically, okay? And it would seem like most of us here are on the generally the same strike philosophically, and other people who aren't, I think we all deal with that kind of okay. But there's other places where they don't, okay? And it would seem like there's a big intolerance for differing viewpoints, okay? So that's when the arguments start, okay? And I'll admit it, sometimes, hey, I kind of like to argue. You can ask Felicia. Sometimes I'll needle just a little bit, but I think that's my right as a husband. So, but she gives as good as she gets. So, so when we come in contact with these people who have differing opinions, and you and I, everybody in here, and has a differing opinion with somebody else about something. But how do we rectify those? Okay? So, we're in a situation where we have somebody we're speaking with, and it inadvertently turns to something that's highly volatile, like current politics. And we're talking, and immediately it becomes obvious that we are of differing opinions on this subject. What do we do from there? Number one, don't amplify things. Don't raise your voice. That's our natural tendency, right? It's like when I lived in Korea, I had a lieutenant buddy of mine, and we were in one of the shops in Korea, and it was like a guitar shop or something. So my buddy was trying to talk to this Korean man who obviously didn't speak English, and so what did my buddy start doing? He started speaking louder in English. It didn't improve the point, the situation, and, it was just like kept speaking louder and louder and louder in English. And I'm like, Tim, buddy, he doesn't speak English, and you speaking louder is not going to drill it into his head any easier. So that's our natural tendency, and I know we've all done it. Like, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Well, no, they can't hear you, and the physical pain that your voice is causing to someone's eardrums doesn't help, right? So instead, this is where we get into what we call verbal jujitsu. Have you ever seen police officers do this before? Or seen it on cops or whatever, and they take a very neutral stance physically, and they start talking things down. They start, this is called de-escalation, and they start using words that are non-confrontational, but they still get the point across. But the biggest thing is that instead of amplifying their voice, they turn it down. You start speaking softer, as proven, then somebody else will speak softer as well that you're talking to. So, and then if we're speaking softer, then our emotions tend to kind of slow down as well. This is one of the bigger points of talking with someone who has a differing opinion than you, is that focus on what you have in common. Most of the time, all of us have more things that we agree on than we disagree on. And even the things that we disagree on, we really kind of agree on, but it's really the mechanics of how something gets done that we disagree on. Does everybody understand what I mean by mechanics? The mechanics of a problem? All right, so here's a little bit lower volatility political scenario where the mechanics are different. All right, so let's bring up the topic of welfare in this country, okay? helping someone who is in need, okay? My preferred mechanics of addressing that problem is to personally extend my hand out and my resources out and help that person. My least preferred method is to give my money to somebody else to reach out through some other way and help that person, because I feel that my way is superior, because I feel that I'm called to do that as a Christian, to reach out and make that one-on-one contact with that person and help lift them up, right? You know, kind of coach them, encourage them, see that they're provided for if they're not able to provide for themselves, and, you know, to profess my faith to them through my action, not through some sanitized roundabout way. All right, that's what I'm talking about when I say the mechanics of something. So both sides of the argument want to help somebody that is less fortunate. It's how we go about doing it that we often disagree on. If we can isolate that, then we can learn to discuss that, okay? The merits of each argument for and against, okay? So, now we get into another thing, now we're progressing through our argument with our so-called straw man here, who's taking the other side of our argument. Let's say that they don't de-escalate. You don't get them to de-escalate. They're still amplifying, and eventually they verbally offend you, right? Okay? And this is, I guess, why I called this building or becoming a strong tower or a fortress or whatever I said. I just butchered it. You have to be strong enough in yourself to be able to receive that volley and let it bounce off of you, right? It's like, just imagine a catapult throwing a rock towards a castle and it bouncing off. Or what was it? What ship was it? American fleet, USS Constitution, they called it Old Ironsides? Yep. Because cannonballs would bounce off the side. The wood was so strong. Think of it that way. You're spiritually strong enough that you're able to take those volleys of insults and just let them kind of glance off of you, okay? Now, physical is something else, and that's where we get into with Matthew 5:39-40. And this is where Jesus tells, you know, if somebody slaps you on the right cheek, offer them the left also, okay? At some point, though, it becomes an attack, and it's not just a, you know, get your mind right kind of slap. It's kind of at that point, in my opinion, an attack. And so defend yourself. I'm not saying don't defend yourself, right? I mean, we have folks positioned here in this sanctuary that they know that that's what they're supposed to do, but you don't want the things to escalate into a physical altercation if you can, right? So be strong enough and confident enough in yourself spiritually as well to take those assaults. And it's kind of a hard thing to do because somebody just called you cotton-headed Denny Muggins, and you're kind of like, well, obviously I'm not. And so don't get offended by it. You know, continue to de-escalate. You know, go back through the steps and de-escalate and bring things down, and try to isolate again what it is you disagree on. So when we go through this, and I was thinking, you know, and I think this every single time I have one of these time periods where I'm like, nothing goes right. You know, like I can just feel my hair getting grayer, and my brow getting more furrowed. I'm like, what is the value in all of these headaches? And like headaches, I'm talking like just really rippers of headaches. Stress headaches, what's the value in it? Well, the value is in Romans 5, verses 3-4. I think I missed this one, Elizabeth, on the sheet. Yeah, Romans 5, 3-4. And it's one of my favorite verses because it reminds me whenever I'm going through one of these hard times, spiritually hard times, that not only so, for we glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. You're building your strong spiritual self when you go through these training periods, if you will. You're being trained to be that strong fortress for someone. For yourself, for your family. Somebody who's able to weather the onslaught of attack and still provide protection. And it's a hard thing to do. How many of y'all have been in athletics and you had a coach that you absolutely hated? Because, they dogged you all the time. But when you get out of that situation, you move on, you go to college, you look back, and you're like, man, that was the best coach I ever had. And that was the best time period I ever had of training because I got stronger. He didn't kill me, but I got stronger. That's what these moments in our life are. These are our training periods. That they are not enjoyable to go through at all. I don't like them. There's times when I'm arguing with God, I'm like, really? I'm sick of it. Stop. I can't take anymore. And he's just like, yeah, you can. Here's some more. And you know what? There came a point, I think maybe yesterday afternoon, where I was just like, okay, stress is gone. I guess this training period is over with. I don't know, I guess it wasn't. I was still a little bit nervous coming in here, getting ready for this today. So, still had to get over that. Just remember, when you're in the middle of that trial, you got to remember this too shall pass. And I hate saying that when I'm in the middle of it. I'm like, pass already. I'm tired. Get it over with. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And are y'all relating to me with that? Where you're like, with this, please just stop. Where are the good times again? I want them now. Well, it's like, get up that hill and we'll talk about it. I'm like, all right, I'm up at the top of the hill. All right, run down that hill. We got a little bit of ways to go. So I'm glad that y'all can relate that you just want the pain to stop. But you're not done training. Okay? So, conclusion. Don't lose your cool. All right, you can take a verbal assault pretty handily. I'm pretty sure most of us can. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, they do hurt, but it's how we deal with the hurt that makes us stronger, okay? Somebody pulls out a stick, put them up. Actually, tackle them. So, and remember that stress causes gray hair, and we're all going to get grayer, right? But Proverbs 16:31 says that gray hair is a crown of splendor. Yeah. And some of y'all got pretty splendid a lot quicker than a lot of us did in here. So, and I'm getting these streaks right here. These are what I call the Haley streaks, the Haley Baker streaks right there. Having a teenage daughter that it seems like her eyes are on a constant roll motion. My son Brandon too. Mark's the easiest going, but there you go. That's the message. When Donald said, "What do you want to talk about?" Well, asked me if I would speak. I immediately knew what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to relate something to the times right now, but not just the times right now, but how we react to it, and bring a relatable story that just almost crushed me these past couple of weeks. Because it's just one of those things where everything seems like it's crazy. We're being trained. All right? How do you react? How do you choose to respond, okay, to a negative stimulus? And it's your choice. Be a strong tower. Be something that could withstand the onslaught to provide protection for yourself and others. All right? Have a great rest of y'all's week, folks. Salute.